My roommate called me ugly and ruined my confidence. On the one day I felt pretty, so I created a fake dating profile for her as revenge, and now the police are after me. Back in college, I was the insecure type. The type to glance at myself on every reflective surface I pass by. The type to change outfits 5 times before going out with my girlfriends. The type to spend every weekly paycheck on falsies, acrylics, and new makeup or skincare. But there was one thought that kept me sane. People probably don't see me as ugly as I see myself, but my roommate Tiffany made it her mission to prove me wrong. At first, it was subtle. She would never like or comment on my posts, while being the world's biggest hype queen for our other friends. She'd never give me compliments, even if I complimented her. But after a month or two, it escalated. She started cropping and even photoshopping me out of group photos. One time, Tiffany even spammed me with like 50 glow-up tips YouTube videos in one single day. But still, none of this was bad enough to raise any alarm bells, because I figured that if I wasn't so ugly, she wouldn't have to do all that. So in my head, it was basically my fault. I know that sounds pathetic, but that's just how you see the world when you're insecure. Anyway, one time, we were all getting ready, me, her, and 4 of our other friends, in our dorm. I remember being really excited because it was St. Patrick's Day weekend. At this point, we had already started drinking, which meant I was just tipsy enough to not feel so insecure. "I'm so glad you're wearing makeup, Abby. Maybe a guy will actually choose you," Tiffany exclaimed, making my smile falter. All our friends turned to look at her with disdain. You see, she usually only said stuff like this in private, but I guess I had let it slide so many times that she finally got the confidence to say it in public. Well, I genuinely took what she said as a compliment. So I just thanked her, and soon we were all getting groovy to Justin Timberlake again. And then came the best part of the night, picture time. With me behind the camera, of course. I was yelling out advice for poses when Tiffany turned to our friend Grace. "Wow, Grace, I mean just, wow, like look at you." So we all started hyping her up. And that's when she said, "Hey, Abby, you look pretty good too." Wow, thanks, Tiffany. With makeup and from a distance, that is. My mouth was hanging open. Our other friends turned to her with a what the F look on their faces. I felt tears sting my eyes and proceeded to handle the situation how any mature 21-year-old would. Now does that? I locked myself in the bathroom and cried on the bathroom floor. All I could make out from outside was the sound of angry whispers and murmurs, while Tiffany repeated the words, "I was just being honest," over and over again. By this point, I had already decided that I wasn't going out anymore, so I started washing my face with water, trying to sober up. And that's when my master plan hit me. While they all argued, I downloaded Hinge and made Tiffany a cute little profile. Luckily, she had over 200 posts on her Instagram, so finding photos wasn't hard. I screenshotted the most revealing ones and spent 5 minutes really badly photoshopping her peach. In the midst of this, I could hear my friends banging on the door. "Tiffany doesn't speak for all of us, Abby. F what she thinks, let's go. Get your beautiful A out here." What they said actually made me smile, but I wasn't budging. And after an hour of failed convincing, they finally gave up and left, including Tiffany. Drunk me was filled with unruly levels of chaotic excitement. I made her a realistic but very desperate Hinge profile and set the distance to boys in a 3-mile radius. And without thinking, I spent $50 on a premium Hinge subscription and sent a like to every damn boy on that app. What's your opinion on biting? Would I be in danger if I sat on your lap? What would you do if I whispered your name with no clothes on? Are some of the tamer opening messages I sent. I even giggled when I saw some of her boyfriend's friends there, because most of them agreed to meet up and F, as long as Tiffany kept it a secret. Other than one friend, who told her he would expose her. I fake begged him not to, and even offered him intimate favors in exchange for his secret keeping. But he said he would anyway. And from there, I cleared all traces of the app on my phone, went to bed, and slept like a baby. I woke up at 4 a.m. to 27 missed calls. None of them were from Tiffany. Our other friends Grace, Patricia, Elizabeth, and Emily had all been trying to reach me. My stomach dropped. Something was seriously wrong. I called Patricia first. She picked up immediately. "Abby, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you all night." I groggily explained I'd been asleep, then asked what was happening. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's Tiffany. She's in the hospital." My blood ran cold. Hospital? Had she alcohol poisoned herself after our fight? What happened? I managed to ask. Look, I can't explain over the phone. Meet us at Memorial Hospital. Now. I threw on clothes and ran across campus to my car, heart pounding. On the drive over, my mind raced with possibilities. Had Tiffany hurt herself? Was this somehow connected to my stupid Hinge prank? At the hospital, I found my friends huddled in the waiting room. Their faces were grim. Grace had clearly been crying. When they saw me, there was this weird moment where they all just stared, like they weren't sure what to say. Patricia pulled me aside and explained in hushed tones. After leaving the dorm, they'd all gone to a frat party. Tiffany had split off from the group at some point. Around 2 a.m., she texted Patricia saying she needed help, saying something about David, one of Alex's fraternity brothers. By the time they found her, she was hysterical, clothes torn. David had shown her screenshots of the Hinge messages. He'd said she was playing hard to get after sending messages like that. He said she had been asking for it. Patricia couldn't finish the sentence. She just said Tiffany had been R-worded. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Tiffany had been assaulted because of messages I'd sent. Messages that weren't even from her. The worst part, Patricia continued, is that Alex broke up with her. He thinks she really was messaging guys on Hinge. He won't even visit her here. I stood there, unable to breathe. And my stupid, petty revenge had led to something horrific. Something unforgivable. And only I knew the truth. "Where is she now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Room 302. Her parents are flying in. Police are involved." Patricia looked at me closely. "Abby, you look like you're going to be sick. Are you okay?" I nodded mechanically and excused myself to the bathroom. Once inside, I locked the stall door and threw up everything in my stomach. This couldn't be happening. I'd never meant for anyone to get hurt. Not like this. I just wanted Tiffany to feel bad for a minute, not suffer something so terrible. I had to tell someone the truth. But how? If I admitted what I'd done, I could be in serious legal trouble. Tiffany could press charges. I could get expelled. My entire future could be ruined. But if I stayed silent, an innocent girl would suffer while her attacker might walk free claiming he was led on. I splashed cold water on my face and looked at my reflection. For once, I wasn't checking if I looked pretty enough. I was searching for any sign that I was still a good person who could fix this. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the person looking back at me. Dark circles had formed under my bloodshot eyes, and my face appeared ashen and drawn with worry. My stupid revenge prank had caused something unimaginable. I gripped the sink so hard my knuckles turned white, trying to steady myself as waves of nausea threatened to overwhelm me again. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that only intensified my growing sense of dread and culpability. Finally, I dragged myself out of the bathroom and back to the waiting room. My friends were still huddled together, looking shell-shocked. Their hushed conversation stopped abruptly when they noticed me approaching. Patricia glanced up when I approached, her normally bright eyes now red-rimmed from crying. "They're letting us see her in small groups," she said quietly, fidgeting with the visitor's pass in her hands. "Do you want to come with me?" The thought of facing Tiffany made me physically ill, but I nodded anyway. As we walked down the sterile hospital corridor, our footsteps echoing against the polished floors, Patricia filled me in on more details. David had been arrested, but was already out on bail. His fraternity brothers were rallying around him, claiming Tiffany had been sending signals. The thought made my stomach twist into an even tighter knot of guilt. When we reached room 302, I froze outside the door. The steady beeping of medical equipment filtered through the partially open doorway. Patricia gave me a gentle nudge. "She needs her friends right now," she whispered, though I couldn't help wondering if I even qualified as Tiffany's friend anymore. The Tiffany lying in that hospital bed looked nothing like the confident girl I knew. Her face was bruised on one side, her bottom lip swollen. Her eyes were vacant, staring at the ceiling. The hospital gown seemed to swallow her usually vibrant presence, making her appear smaller and frighteningly vulnerable. She didn't even acknowledge us when we entered, though the slight tensing of her shoulders suggested she was aware of our presence. "Hey, Tiff," Patricia said softly, moving to her bedside and carefully taking a seat in the plastic chair. "Abby and I came to check on you." At the mention of my name, Tiffany's eyes flicked toward me. For a split second, I saw something there. Confusion, maybe? Then her gaze returned to the ceiling, fixed on some invisible point that seemed preferable to facing reality. I stood awkwardly at the foot of her bed, unable to form words. What could I possibly say? Sorry my fake Hinge messages led to you getting assaulted. The guilt was crushing me, constricting my chest until it felt nearly impossible to breathe in the antiseptic-scented air. Patricia chatted gently to fill the silence, telling Tiffany that everyone was thinking about her, that her parents would arrive soon from their business trip in Chicago. Tiffany remained unresponsive, occasionally nodding slightly, her fingers absently plucking at the thin hospital blanket covering her legs. After 15 uncomfortable minutes, a nurse came in to check Tiffany's vitals, giving us a reason to leave. In the hallway, I turned to Patricia, leaning against the wall for support as my legs threatened to give way beneath me. "I can't believe this happened," I mumbled. It was the only true thing I could say. "I know, and the worst part is, everyone's talking about those Hinge messages. Half the campus thinks she was asking for it." Patricia's voice cracked. "Someone even made posters with screenshots and hung them in the student union. Campus security took them down, but not before everyone saw." My stomach lurched again. The messages. My messages. How did they get the screenshots? David's fraternity brothers have been sharing them everywhere. They're trying to protect him. Patricia looked disgusted, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "Alex won't even return my calls. He thinks she cheated." Back at my car, I sat with the engine off, trying to think. The dashboard clock blinked 4:37 p.m., but time seemed meaningless now. I needed to tell someone the truth, but the consequences seemed overwhelming. If I confessed, I'd probably face criminal charges. Identity theft, fraud, maybe even some responsibility for what happened to Tiffany. I'd be expelled for sure. My entire future, gone. I drove back to the dorm in a daze. Our room was still empty. I sat on my bed, staring at Tiffany's side of the room. Her perfectly organized desk, the photos of her and Alex taped to the wall, the string lights she'd hung to make the institutional space feel homier. I picked up my phone and opened my browser. I Googled consequences of identity theft and spent 30 minutes reading legal articles that made my situation seem increasingly hopeless. Then I searched responsible for someone else getting assaulted, which led me down an even darker rabbit hole of legal precedents and horrifying stories similar to what was unfolding in my own life. By evening, I'd convinced myself that coming clean would only make things worse for everyone. If David went free because I tainted the case, wouldn't that be worse than staying quiet? I told myself I'd find other ways to make it right. Anonymous tips to the police about David's character, supporting Tiffany from afar. These pathetic justifications helped me sleep that night, but I woke up to chaos. Elizabeth was pounding on my door at 7 a.m. When I opened it, she pushed past me into the room, still wearing her pajamas and looking like she hadn't slept. "Have you seen this?" She thrust her phone at me. On screen was a campus news alert. Breaking. Campus police investigating online harassment campaign against assault victim. I felt the blood drain from my face as I read the article. According to the report, someone had created multiple fake dating profiles using Tiffany's photos and information. The police were treating it as part of the assault investigation, suggesting that David might have created the profiles himself to justify his actions. Elizabeth took her phone back, scrolling frantically. And that's not all. Look, she showed me a screenshot of a text conversation in a group chat I wasn't part of. It was from someone named Charles in Alex's fraternity, claiming that some girl had used Tiffany's pics to create fake profiles as a prank. Apparently, several guys remembered getting strange messages from Tiffany all on the same night, which seems suspicious. "They're starting to think someone set her up," Elizabeth said. "The timing is too weird. All these messages sent in like a 1-hour window." I sank onto my bed, trying to keep my expression neutral. That's awful. Who would do that?" Elizabeth shook her head. "I don't know, but the campus police are taking it seriously. They're supposedly tracking the IP addresses or something." She sat beside me. "You okay? You look pale." "Just tired," I mumbled, and worried about Tiffany. After Elizabeth left, I paced our small room in a panic. IP addresses, credit card information. The technology trail I'd left would lead straight to me. It was only a matter of time before I was caught. That afternoon, I got an email from the dean of students requesting a meeting the next day to discuss recent events. No further explanation. My heart nearly stopped. This was it. They knew. I barely slept that night rehearsing what I would say. Should I confess immediately? Try to explain? Deny everything? By morning, I'd settled on telling the whole truth. The guilt was eating me alive, and maybe if I came clean voluntarily, they'd be lenient. The dean's office was intimidating. All dark wood and serious-looking diplomas on the walls. Dean Adams, a stern woman in her 50s, gestured for me to sit across from her desk. "Thank you for coming in, Abby," she said, shuffling some papers. "As you know, we've had a serious incident involving your roommate." I nodded, my mouth too dry to speak. "In cases like this, we gather information from everyone close to the victim. I understand you and Tiffany are roommates. Had you noticed any changes in her behavior recently? Any new relationships or concerning interactions?" My rehearsed confession died in my throat. They didn't know. This was just a routine interview. No, I stammered. Nothing unusual. Dean Adams asked several more questions about Tiffany's relationship with Alex, her general demeanor, her social habits. I answered as truthfully as I could without incriminating myself. As the meeting wrapped up, Dean Adams mentioned, "We're also investigating some online harassment against Tiffany. Fake dating profiles, inappropriate messages, very disturbing stuff. If you hear anything about who might be responsible, I hope you'll come forward." I nodded mechanically and fled her office. That evening, I visited Tiffany again. She'd been released from the hospital but was staying with Patricia temporarily. Patricia let me in and whispered that Tiffany was having a better day, before leaving us alone in the living room. Tiffany sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. She looked up when I entered but didn't smile. "Hey," I said awkwardly, perching on the armchair across from her. "How are you feeling?" She shrugged. "Everyone keeps asking me that." "Sorry," I muttered. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a minute before Tiffany spoke again. "Did you hear about the profiles? Someone pretended to be me on dating apps?" My heart raced. "Yeah, I heard something about that. The police think David did it to make it look like I wanted it." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "But it doesn't make sense. How would he get all those pictures from my private Instagram? And why would he message his own friends?" I shifted in my seat, feeling sweat break out on my forehead. "I don't know." Tiffany looked at me directly for the first time. "I keep thinking about that night. How weird it is that this happened right after I was so mean to you." My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean?" "I said those horrible things. You locked yourself in the bathroom for an hour and then all these fake profiles of me appeared." She tilted her head. "Seems like a weird coincidence." I froze, unable to speak. Did she know? Was this some kind of trap? "I deserved it," she said suddenly, looking away. "What I said to you was horrible. I've been horrible to you for months." "No one deserves what happened to you," I whispered, my voice breaking. "No one." She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. "The police want access to my phone and laptop. They're looking for evidence I might have sent those messages myself, for attention. Can you believe that?" Each word was like a knife in my chest. I had to tell her the truth. I opened my mouth, the confession on the tip of my tongue, when Patricia returned with tea. The moment broke. I left soon after, my secret still intact but weighing heavier than ever. The next day, campus was buzzing with the news that David had been officially charged with assault. Apparently, there was physical evidence and a witness who'd seen him follow Tiffany into a room at the party. The fake profiles were still under investigation, but weren't impacting the main case. I should have felt relieved. Instead, guilt continued to consume me. I stopped going to classes, barely ate, and avoided my friends. Every time my phone rang, I expected it to be campus police or the real police. A week after the assault, I received another email from the dean's office. This time, it was different. Regarding the investigation into online impersonation and harassment, that was it. I was caught. I spent the hour before the meeting in the bathroom, throwing up from anxiety. When I finally dragged myself to the administrative building, I was a wreck. To my surprise, Dean Adams wasn't alone in her office. A campus police officer and a detective from the city police department were also present. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. "Please sit down, Abby," Dean Adams said, her tone impossible to read. "These gentlemen have some questions for you." The detective, who introduced himself as Detective Martinez, placed a folder on the desk. "We've been investigating the fake dating profiles created using Tiffany Walker's information and photos. Are you familiar with this situation?" I nodded, unable to speak. "We've traced the accounts to an IP address in your dormitory, during a time frame when you were the only person present in the room," he continued. "Additionally, the premium subscription for one of these accounts was purchased using a credit card in your name." There it was, the evidence trail I'd been too stupid to consider in my drunken revenge state. "Would you like to explain?" he asked, watching me closely. I took a deep breath and told them everything. The months of subtle bullying from Tiffany, the St. Patrick's Day incident, my drunken, impulsive decision to create the fake profiles, how I never intended for anyone to get hurt, especially not in such a horrible way. When I finished, the room was silent. Detective Martinez made notes while Dean Adams watched me with an unreadable expression. Finally, the detective spoke. "You understand this is a serious offense? Identity theft, fraud, potentially even accessory charges related to the assault?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I know. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make it right." What followed was a blur of legal terms and potential consequences. The detective explained that while they couldn't directly connect my actions to David's decision to assault Tiffany, my creating the profiles had contributed to a hostile environment and potentially complicated the prosecution's case. I left the meeting with a court date for the identity theft and fraud charges, and a notice of disciplinary proceedings from the university. The detective had been clear. I was looking at potential jail time, definitely probation, and almost certainly expulsion. I walked back to my dorm in a daze. My life as I knew it was over. No degree, a criminal record, probably massive legal fees, and worst of all, the knowledge that my actions had unintentionally facilitated Tiffany's assault. I found Tiffany waiting outside our room. My heart sank even further. She must have heard. They told me, she said simply as I approached. Her face was unreadable. I fumbled with my key card, hands shaking. Tiffany, not here, she interrupted. Let's go somewhere private. We ended up at a quiet corner of the campus coffee shop. 2 untouched drinks between us. I couldn't meet her eyes, staring instead at a coffee stain on the table. Why didn't you just tell me? She asked finally. When you visited me at Patricia's, I practically handed you the opportunity. I was scared. I whispered, scared of getting in trouble? Scared you'd hate me even more? Scared I'd make everything worse for you? Worse than letting me think I might have somehow brought this on myself? Her voice was tight with anger. Worse than watching me question my own sanity? I had no defense. I'm so sorry, Tiffany. What I did was unforgivable. Yeah, it was. She took a sip of her coffee. But so was what I did to you? I looked up confused. I've been awful to you, Abby. Deliberately, consistently awful. She set her cup down carefully. I was jealous of you. Jealous? Of me? The notion seemed absurd. You're naturally pretty without trying. Everyone likes you. Guys talk to you like a person instead of just staring at your chest. She shook her head. I felt threatened. So I tried to make you feel as insecure as I felt. It was cruel, and I knew it. I sat back, stunned. All this time, I'd believed every negative thing Tiffany had implied about my appearance. The idea that she might have been jealous had never occurred to me. That doesn't excuse what I did, I said eventually. No, it doesn't, she agreed. But it might help explain how we got here. We talked for over an hour, really talked, possibly for the first time, about our insecurities, about the toxic competition college culture created among women, about the truly awful behavior of David and the guys who'd been willing to cheat with someone they thought was their friend's girlfriend. Finally, Tiffany laid her hands flat on the table. I'm not pressing additional charges against you, and I'm going to ask the DA to consider a diversion program instead of prosecution. I blinked back tears. Why would you do that for me? Because destroying your life won't undo what happened to me. She looked straight at me. But you have to do something for me in return. Anything, I said immediately. Testify against David. Tell the whole story. How you created the profiles. How the messages were fake. Help me put him away. I hadn't expected this. Testifying meant public humiliation. Facing David and his fraternity brothers, admitting my shameful actions to the entire campus and possibly beyond. But I owed her this. I owed her much more than this. I'll do it. I promised. The next few weeks were among the hardest of my life. The university disciplinary committee placed me on probation, but allowed me to continue my studies after Tiffany advocated on my behalf. The legal process was more complicated. I entered a diversion program that required community service, therapy, and a series of educational workshops on digital ethics. The worst part was the social fallout. Once the full story came out, most of our friend group was torn. Some, like Patricia, were furious with me and refused to speak to me. Others, like Grace, tried to maintain relationships with both me and Tiffany, but found it increasingly difficult to navigate the tension. I became a social pariah on campus, whispered about in classes, and avoided at parties. I threw myself into preparing for David's trial. The prosecutor coached me extensively, warning that the defense would try to paint me as the real villain, the person who created a situation David had simply misunderstood. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoing footsteps. I spotted David across the room, surrounded by fraternity brothers in suits. He looked nothing like the monster I'd imagined, just an ordinary college guy in a borrowed tie. When I was called to testify, I told my story exactly as it had happened. The petty revenge, the fake profiles, the messages I'd sent. I admitted to my jealousy and insecurity, my terrible judgment and worse actions. The defense attorney tried to twist my words, suggesting I'd created the entire situation out of spite and that David was an innocent victim of my scheme. So you admit you fabricated romantic interest from Ms. Walker toward my client? The attorney pressed. I created fake messages, yes, but that doesn't give anyone the right to assault another person, I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. Isn't it possible that my client genuinely believed Ms. Walker was interested in him, based on your elaborate deception? I looked directly at David. The messages never suggested anyone wanted to be assaulted. And when someone says no, which Tiffany did, repeatedly, according to witnesses, you stop, period. After my testimony, I sat in the back of the courtroom while Tiffany took the stand. She was composed and articulate as she described the assault. When asked about the dating profiles, she explained that she'd had no knowledge of them until after the assault. She also stated firmly that regardless of any messages, she had verbally refused David's advances multiple times. During a recess, I found myself alone in the courthouse restroom with Tiffany. There was an awkward moment as we both washed our hands. You did good in there, she said, meeting my eyes in the mirror. So did you, I replied. You were amazing. She dried her hands carefully. We'll probably never be friends again. You know that, right? I nodded. The bridge was too thoroughly burned. But I don't hate you anymore, she continued. What you did was terrible, but you're owning it. That counts for something. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. 2 weeks later, David accepted a plea deal. He'd serve 6 months in county jail, followed by 3 years of probation. He was expelled from the university and would have to register as a registered offender. The day the news broke, I received a text from Tiffany. It's over. Thank you for telling the truth. It was the last direct communication we had. Shortly afterward, she transferred to another university. I heard through mutual friends that she was doing well, that she'd joined a support group and was even dating someone new. As for me, I stayed at State, determined to graduate despite the whispers and stares. I found new friends eventually, people who knew my story but believed in second chances. I started volunteering at the campus women's center, sharing my story as a cautionary tale about how petty revenge can spiral into unintended consequences. One night during my senior year, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize. The subject line read simply, "From Tiffany." I opened it with trembling fingers. Abby, it began. It's been almost 2 years since everything happened. I'm writing because I'm doing a project for my psychology class on forgiveness and closure. I've realized I never properly said it, so here it is. I forgive you. What you did was wrong, but what I did to you before that was wrong too. We both played parts in a situation that spiraled beyond our control. I don't regret transferring schools. The fresh start has been good for me, but I do sometimes wonder how differently things might have gone if we'd both been kinder to each other from the beginning. I hope you're doing well. I hope we both learned something from all this. Tiffany. I read the email 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I sat down to write my response, beginning with the 2 most important words. Thank you. The weight I had carried for so long finally began to lift.